Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and you guys know what time it is. It's time to talk about current events in the online fitness community, and I thought I would just kind of do a little update video because I get a lot of questions, and part of the problem I have is that a lot of the questions I get on this come from places other than my channel because a lot of people make videos about me, they talk about me, people see stuff, and then they think that like I'm cutting or something, or I have a failed cut or whatever, and it's people who don't actually follow my vlogs because I actually vlog all of my training year round. And so that stuff gets thrown in there as far as what I'm doing, what's going on with my body weight. Anything like that is actually included in there, but you're talking about an hour plus of actual content every single week, and people don't always watch that, and they just see rumors and they don't know what's going on. So I thought, let me just update people here because this is easier than typing it out to 50 different people when they ask. So let me put on my +5 hat of speechcraft, lovingly called my +5 hat of autism by many of you, and let's talk about this. All right, so to answer the question, and it actually gets asked sometimes by people who just see a little bit of my training and informative videos. Is Jason cutting? Did he fail a cut? What happened? All right, part of the confusion I think that happens for the regular viewers is that people don't understand that a lot of my informative videos, I make those in big, big bursts. Like you guys would be shocked at how many of the actual informative videos I will sometimes make in a 3-day window and then not even make any for a month. Like literally sometimes I make an entire month's worth of informative videos in 3 days. And then I don't do any again for 3 weeks. And because a lot of those are voiced over training footage, you might actually be looking at training footage that's 6, 7, 8 weeks old, and I might even be shirtless in it versus my current stuff. And then people say, "Oh man, you look slightly different. What happened?" And so I will get that sometimes in my normal informatives. People will say, "Hey, you look a little bit different. What happened? Or did you gain some body fat?" And to me, that's interesting because I see my training footage every day as I film it. I see myself in the mirror every day, so I don't necessarily notice changes. So it's always interesting to me when someone goes and says that, and then they don't realize that they're looking at a video clip that's 8 weeks old, right? And if they think I gained a little bit of body fat, well, what does that mean? That means that I must look like I've lost body fat now, if that's what they're thinking seeing that clip. So it's a lot of times it's interesting for me to see that because the viewer doesn't always know when that was filmed. I know when it was filmed, but it was done in real time because anything that makes it into those informative videos that I'm voicing over for examples or stuff in the background is stuff that was actually uploaded at one time in real time, like within 24 hours of it actually occurring. So that can create some confusion there. And yeah, there's going to be changes in body composition over time here and there. But as far as answering the main question, am I cutting? No, I don't plan on cutting at all this year. I don't plan on bulking or cutting really to any substantial degree at any point in 2019. My stated goal, and I guess I need to reiterate this for people, is to stay approximately the same body weight and to maximize strength, right? I'm trying to maximize strength, work capacity, maximum strength, speed strength, all of these things while staying more or less at the same body weight, right? More or less at the same body weight. I'm at a body weight to where my body is comfortable, it's healthy, it's willing to make gains at this body weight right now. So I want to kind of ride that out and maximize my performance. And people need to remember that I'm an athlete. I'm not a bodybuilder. And so people get this confused because they're used to seeing bodybuilders and physique people, and they think of people as doing a cut and then a bulk, right? Well, they cut and they get shredded. So that in their mind that a person who cuts is just trying to get shredded and then lose that cut. Whereas for an athlete, it's not going to be that cut and bulk. That's not how it works. It's like once I drop to a given body weight, I'm probably not going to regain it because that's not what you're trying to do. You don't do fast cuts and then just regain later for some event. A lot of times we're trying to maximize performance at a body weight. So what a power lifter or another athlete might do who has more body fat than they want, they might slowly trim down and then sit there for a while. And if they trim down and they want to get to a certain body fat to be more competitive, they plan on staying there for the long term. It's not like you do a cut and then your cut's over when the summer shredding is over and then you go back to a little fluffier. That's not necessarily how it works for someone who's an athlete because we have to, over time, re-maximize performance at that new body weight because we're going to compete at that body weight in 6 months or a year or 2 years and 3 years later, right? We're not going to go way back up. Probably not, unless we want to go to a different weight class. So if you do decide to cut down, you normalize at that body weight and body fat, right? You have to reacclimate to it. And so it's completely different. And that's the difference between athletes and physique competitors. It's a totally different world. And I think because the fitness world is very heavily dominated by the figures there right now, the physique-oriented people, I think that gets lost in the translation. So actually, I did cut last year. I did a 40-pound cut, and I've kept the actual scale weight off. And I think that created some confusion because people were like, well, no, because you regained a little bit. Because at one point, when you were dehydrated and in a lower deficit still, you had dropped to a certain weight and you regained 6 pounds by your DEXA scan. Yeah, but it wasn't 6 pounds of fat. It was 6 pounds of water, right? Because I was in a deficit and I was actually had a bunch of activities and stuff happening during that time, my scale weight dropped way down. It dropped way, way down. It was down like 6 pounds more than where I had been maintaining, but it was due to deficit. It was due to a little bit of water loss, some sweating, and a lot of activity I was doing day to day. And then when I went back to maintenance, it went up 6 pounds, and that's where I was for the final DEXA scan. So there was a low point. There was a low point where I was all the way down to 209. But a month later, for my DEXA scan, and it was actually more than a month, I believe it was like 6 weeks later, might have been 7. I was at 215, which was an actual 15-pound fat loss between the two DEXA scans. So that DEXA scan showed that I lost 15 pounds of fat and kept all of my lean tissue over the course of between the second and third DEXA scan. So I mean that's a successful cut. I lost 40 pounds of body weight, and during the final run of it, I managed to strip off 15 pounds of body fat while keeping all of my lean mass and muscle mass. So I mean that was a success. That was good. And then I essentially after that toyed around with stuff and realized I need to just kind of stay in that range. So for me, I actually weigh myself every day, and for the recomp, I actually adjust my calories to maintain or staying in that range because I don't want to lose a bunch of weight. If I lose weight, it's going to hurt my performance. And if I gain weight, I'm going to get fat. So I'm trying to essentially, on a week-to-week basis, I take my weekly average and I adjust my intake just slightly based on it, right? And that's what I'm doing. So if I start drifting up and I hit 220, I cut my food back just a tiny amount. I'm talking a tiny amount, like 100, 200 calories. If I drop down and I hit 215 one day, I usually throw a little more protein or fat in. I usually add a little bit of extra fat to my diet, right? So I bump my calories up a couple hundred. So I'm trying to stay right around 217, 18 is right about where my comfort zone is. And if I start hitting 215 or 220, I adjust my intake. So I'm just staying in that range, and I'm trying to maximize as much strength as I can possibly gain there. And a lot of it has to do with saying, hey, what weight classes do I need to be in down the road? Because yes, am I going to compete again in powerlifting? Absolutely. I'm going to compete again in powerlifting. The problem is that when people say when, it's like, I'm not going to tell you guys. Because for those people who know, I have a lot of problems, like serious problems with crazy stalkers and trolls. Like if I were to announce a powerlifting meet that I'm going to do, that meet is actually going to get harassed. All right, it's going to create stress that I don't need as a competitor. Because when I want to compete, I'm there to win. I'm not there to deal with BS. I'm not there to deal with a troll. I'm not there to deal with nonsense. I am at a competition for the purpose of competing. And so by me just not telling anyone, oh yeah, I'm going to do X meet in 6 months, I don't have to deal with any BS. I can just go to a meet and compete. And so therefore, I don't give any timeline. There's going to be never any warning at this point that, hey, I'm going to start competing again or when, and I don't even want to approximate it, right? Because we don't need that nonsense. And so, will I compete again? Absolutely. But I'm not going to tell anybody when, where, what federations, what timeline. That way nobody knows. And then I just show up and compete, can film it, I can discuss it, upload it afterwards. And then problem solved. So I do plan on competing again, and I do have to think in terms of weight classes. And what's the general rule? If you really and truly want to be competitive in powerlifting, what do you need to shoot for a weight class? You need to be the shortest, leanest person in your class, right? Now, people say, well, if you need to be leaner, then why don't you do a cut? Because then I'll have to bulk again. it's easier to just recomp because I am seeing a slow amount of recomp. People are noticing that who do notice, watch my training footage. I'm even getting some regulars saying, okay, all the joking and trolling aside, you look a little bigger here, you look a little leaner. Did you cut? Did you, what happened? And the reality is I haven't done either one. It is actually just a slow, steady recomp. I plan on staying in the same weight. But what people need to remember, if you're not really gaining or losing weight, but you are gaining substantial strength and you're working on your weak points and getting stronger, you are going to recomposition. It's a slow process. It's a very slow process, but again, some of the most successful strength athletes in the world do it that way. There are strength athletes for weight class sports who don't even do traditional bulks and cuts. I know champions who do it that way. They actually do, they either clean bulk or they recomp all the time. They don't ever do anything else. They don't do real bulks, they don't do real cuts. So they are either in a recomposition mode full time or they try to do a slow lean bulk to come up a class without any fat gain. And that's a hard way to do it, but I feel like that's probably the healthiest way to do it. I feel it's the most productive way to do it. I don't have to deal with big shifts in my strength, which affects your mindset and your ego. I don't have to deal with any of that. I can just be a slow, steady progress because I'm not going to make noob gains again. I'm not a novice lifter anymore. I'm also not going to be blasting gear at any point in the foreseeable future. And that's not to say that I'm going to necessarily always compete clean because I may not. We're talking about powerlifting here. But I don't plan on ever blasting significant amounts of gear ever again in my future. So I'm just not going to see those big changes. Everything's just going to be a nice, slow, steady focus on progression without a real concern for that. And if I stay at the same body weight, and if that ends up making me eventually get leaner, and then I look at it and realize I could do a water cut and drop another class, then by all means I'll consider that. But it might just be easier for me to just recomposition over time and just try to be at any given class an inch shorter and 2% lower body fat than my competitors. I mean, that's usually what you want. If you can pull that off, you're generally going to win. That's a viable strategy in powerlifting. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.